ever-evolving digital landscape, for your business to thrive, you must adapt or die. Welcome to Marketing in the Age of AI, the podcast helping you harness the power of AI and marketing tools to revitalize and grow your business. And now here's your host, marketing expert and author of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI, Emmanuel Rose.
Welcome to this episode of Marketing in the Age of AI. I'm your host, Emmanuel Rose. Today, I'm excited to have a very experienced guest who's been making waves in the world of digital marketing and AI strategies for over 15 years, Jess Gonzalez. And she's a very experienced growth marketer, experienced in demand generation and product marketing, and works with startups all the way to Fortune 500 companies for a long time. And welcome to the show, Jess.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Yeah, I'm really excited, and I'm very appreciative that you're spending time today with me. So thank you very much.
Yeah, excited to chat AI.
The biggest bubble we've had in a while.
I know. It feels like the topic of most conversations anyways, but there's so much to it and so much nuance and so many opportunities that I feel like we could talk about this all day and there would still be stones left to unturn.
Well, yeah, because it's changing as we talk about it, right? It's so dynamic. That's what's fascinating about it.
Oh yeah.
I'm curious to know from what you're seeing with your clients and conversations, just what the adoption rate is for companies for starting to bring in AI tools. You know, is it 10% of the companies, 50% of the companies? What are you seeing?
So it's interesting you say that because I actually saw a stat the other day from, I think SurveyMonkey did
Yeah,
it, and they said like 75-80% of companies are adopting AI tools. And I thought that seemed insanely high.
yeah, I would agree with that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
I was like, "No way." And so I think when we look at it, there's almost a spectrum of AI usage. So there's people who maybe are using ChatGPT to help write an email or a social media post where it's really basic, like content creation use cases. That I think is becoming a higher percentage where
yeah,
people are either using it in their day-to-day or else their company without their company even formally bringing it on, or the company is saying, "Hey, this tool is $10 a month. Let's add it into our stack."
yep.
When it comes to really using AI in a transformative way, I think very few companies are actually adopting it in a meaningful way where it's able to change how they run departments, how they run systems, and beyond just that content creation use case, which seems to have taken over the world. It's either
Yeah.
content creation or it's cold outbounding.
Yeah, right. Yeah, I know we're back in the spray and pray arena of marketing, aren't we?
Yeah, pretty much. Well,
Every
it's ironic you say that because I was talking to someone the other day about how we're kind of going back to billboards
Yep.
with the move towards the cookieless world and Google Analytics 4 rolling out, a bit ago, but the limited view it gives you and all these platforms are really pulling back on the data that they're giving advertisers. We're kind of going back to billboards where you're really just looking at impressions and paying for how many people are seeing your ad versus being able to track it the whole way through to conversion.
Yeah, it's interesting. And then the other thing I'm noticing that is much to my frustration as a user is the pop-ups and interruption marketing.
Oh,
Uh,
yeah.
I thought we had put that one to bed, but I guess every generation of marketer has to experience bad results from interrupting people from what they actually want to accomplish.
Oh, yeah.
And yeah, I think maybe that 70% number would be if you're using something like a Sauna or another program that's got AI baked into it,
Yeah.
right? Like then, but yeah, I'm not seeing those big numbers. I mean, what are you seeing on the client side of actually, your supporting deployments or guiding deployments?
Yeah, so we have a bit of a different viewpoint because clients come to us specifically because they want to build process structure, automation, pulling in AI. So we're a bit biased, but in
Yeah,
general, when I talk to marketers, I would say maybe 10 to 15% are really bringing AI in a meaningful way.
right.
I think a lot of times when they do, it's those really superficial use cases. And there's a handful of reasons I think that that number's low. But I think there's still just a ton of opportunity and not enough people are really using it in a meaningful way yet.
Yeah, so we're still in that early part of the curve.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, where
Yeah.
we probably have it's probably like a 3-year ramp up, even though for us we're in it every day, and it's like it seems like we're behind, way behind, but it's really it takes time to integrate these new technologies, right?
Well, and there's so many tools out there also that I think aren't actually AI, but they'll say they're AI, or the tools rolling out an AI, wait list for it. I've been using what is today essentially AI, what we term it, I've been using for like a decade.
Right.
And so a lot of this stuff isn't new, but the way we can use it is new. And it takes a bit to, I think, find the ways it fits into your systems and
Yeah.
forces a lot of people to take a step back and say, hold on, I'm trying to bring AI into even my content creation system, but I actually don't have a strategy. I'm
Right.
just putting out LinkedIn posts. I don't actually have a system to incorporate it into. Let me go now build a system to then bring AI into.
Yeah, I love it, and that's a great segue. And maybe you could explain um, how you are building these systems in a high level way.
Yeah. So it all starts with the fundamentals, which I think a lot of people like to skip over,
Yeah.
especially when I get hit up multiple times a week on LinkedIn by some like 22-year-old who has no sales or marketing experience trying to sell me an outbounding strategy.
Yep.
It starts with the fundamentals of what are you doing and why are you doing it and how are you getting it done. So having some marketing automation layer, typically HubSpot is what we're seeing really taking more and more of the market share where 5 6 years ago Marketo and Salesforce were huge players too,
Sure.
but you have some automation layer and you have some business logic around how you're building a process, how you're building your, let's say, inbound flow when someone converts on your website and you send them a follow-up email nurture series and you collect data on how they're engaging in different emails and all this. So taking that time to really build that out and then seeing where can we inject AI that makes sense. Maybe you have an email that you're sending to like 300,000 plus people. That's a ton of data for you to sift through if you want to
Sure.
personalize your email outreach. It's a great use case for AI. But
Right.
excuse
Oh,
me.
bless you. Yeah.
So really building your process first and then finding ways to add AI in to help it be more efficient or help bring you scale. Where I see people go wrong is they'll often say, I need to use AI. They'll start using an AI tool and then they try and build their system around that
Right.
tool.
Right.
And at that point, you're just automating inefficiencies half the time.
For sure. Yeah, that makes sense. And so then this idea that we have to have a strategy, we have to have some KPIs to balance that strategy against to know what we're trying to accomplish, and then getting a system and figuring out what we're good at and where the gaps are maybe, and then
Yeah.
see if there's a tool inside those gaps, and then start to
Yeah.
trial that way.
Or even the stuff that you hate doing.
Right.
The reason that we have so many reporting platforms out there is reporting can be a nightmare to do, and a
Yes.
lot of people don't they when they start sitting down to pull together reporting, they kind of just shut down, they dread it. And so we're willing to outsource those things that we don't like doing, and there's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
If you have some part of your day that you absolutely hate doing, maybe there's an AI for that can come in and help you take that part off your plate so you can spend time doing the stuff that you really like to do.
Yeah, I love that. I agree. That's a great use case. And then what I've observed from these conversations is that the forward thinking companies are saying AI first, keep the human in the loop, monitor, manage, innovate, and then continue to balance against your KPIs. Do you have anything that you would add to that high level sequence, Jess?
So what I would double down on is the human in the loop. And that's actually a litmus test, yeah, that I use when talking to people. If they're looking for an AI solution that does everything and just gives them the ability to, I mean, I would say not even hit publish sometimes, that tells me that they're not really thinking about AI serious.
Right.
Because using AI to get you to that first draft or getting to a point that a human can look at things to make a decision instead of doing all of the thought work, that's really where that value is. So I would just emphasize the human in the loop part. But we follow a similar process when working with clients and just advising people in general on how to pull AI into their systems.
That's awesome. Yeah. Do you have a use case or two that you could describe of some successful deployments?
Actually, we just ran into one yesterday and I'm recording a video to share on LinkedIn.
Awesome.
We had a client who wanted to update their pricing page.
Hmm.
And, pretty standard for a SaaS company, you either have no pricing on your website or you have
Right.
to list a ton of options, right? Because
Yeah.
it's super customizable.
Right.
And we're running into a scenario where we had a bunch of stakeholders at the table, like 4 or 5 different people who had different ideas on how they wanted it presented, and no one was
Oh,
really talking the same language.
right.
And so we pulled up Claude and we just popped it in as like a prompt in some of the information, pulled in their pricing structure, and we had Claude mock it up live on the
Yeah.
call.
Awesome.
And everyone they'd never seen it before.
Uh-huh.
And so they're like, whoa, hold on. Okay, well, now I see what it looks like and I see why you said my idea was bad. Yeah, I agree that that's not what I was thinking originally. But holy shit, what just happened? How did you do that?
Right.
And it was like, yeah, we can visualize stuff. And so even those moments, like bringing AI in to help with that and showing the client how to use it and how quick it was,
Yep.
it brought some like lightness to the conversation that was pretty serious. We ended up for that client deploying the pricing page update in about a week and a half. And it was a 3-month scope project before we came in and got involved.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
Yeah, because
Yeah.
those especially those conversations get so like down and dirty, and everybody's in their little camp, and
Oh, yeah.
and then you've got to mock up 5 different things, and then you still have disagreements even once the mock-ups are there, right?
Yeah, I know traditionally they would send their ideas to a designer
Yep.
who would come back in maybe 2 weeks with like 10 different options and you narrow it down.
Yep.
We still have the designer involved, but by having it live and being able to change things in conversation, we're
Yeah.
able to get everyone into a better consensus and say, here's our 2 ideas. Okay, designer, here's the 2 things we looked at. Here's what we like, here's what we don't like. What do you think? And then the designer turned it around within a week, and it got us to that same I would say that same level of agreement and the same level of design that would have previously taken a month to get to with feedback.
Yeah. Wow, that's amazing. Yeah, that's a great use case. I love it. Anything else that you've seen in a deployment?
So I'll give another example because where I find AI to be really helpful is little things that take a long time.
Yep.
And so I had someone I was talking to, a company advise, and they were looking through some reporting and they said, we think there's a trend in here, but we can't figure out what the trend is.
Yeah.
And we know that we need like 40% more pipeline coming in. And so we literally took a copy of all the numbers. We didn't share their entire data because you want to keep in mind when you put stuff into ChatGPT, that becomes public to them. So
Yeah,
we
that's a
just
great
took,
reminder for
yeah,
everybody.
yeah. So don't share all your data. But we just took a list of all the numbers and we said, hey, can you analyze this and tell us if there's any trends in the numbers that you see in here? And they came out and said, yeah, you have 4 cohorts. This is what they are. It was like, okay, great. What if we want to make that 2? Okay,
Yeah.
here's how to book it. All right, what if we want to make it like 6? Are there any things that we're seeing? Is there anything you're seeing in the data that looks like a pattern? And we ended up we had the date the deal was open, and then we had the value for the deal.
Yeah.
And then it came back and it identified a pattern that we hadn't seen with seasonality. And
Nice.
so using AI almost as a thought partner of, I have this problem I'm trying to solve. Let me just give you all the data that I have and tell me how you're seeing it, because maybe it's seeing it in a different way than you are. So that ended up being really helpful. We had some reporting that was off. And so I just uploaded the 2 different data sets and asked it to tell me what the difference was. and to try and figure out where that difference had came from. And it said, oh, it looks like here's your difference, and it's all between these two dates. So maybe something changed. I was like,
Right.
yep, there we go. We found our error in the workflow that messed everything up for 2 weeks, until it was fixed.
Yeah. No, that's amazing. And I agree with you that these big big pieces of data that it take humans hours or days to dig through and maybe not even reach a good conclusion, right?
Yeah.
Like that's a great use for it.
Yeah.
I've also seen it in like strategic planning processes where you take 2 or 3 days worth of content and get it summarized and action
Yeah.
planned and things that normally would take a considerable amount of time.
Yeah. And this is going to be seem like such a minor thing, but when you're doing advertising, sometimes you need to upload a list of companies that are listed out, comma separated.
Right.
And you have a list that's in like an Excel spreadsheet or such, or you have a list out of like Salesforce or HubSpot. And when you copy it, it's separated by lines.
Yeah.
Taking that and putting that in and just saying, can you rewrite this list as comma separated? It can take 2 seconds, and then you just copy and paste it in.
Right.
There's little things too that I think about, like I used to do it in Excel. If I
Right.
needed to take I have a timestamp that's the date and the actual like time of the day, and I need to strip that off, I would just write a formula to strip off the last 8 characters on the right side of the field. And
Yep.
now I can just put in a ChatGPT and it'll give me an output in a couple seconds.
Yeah. Yeah, that is. It's like having a host of VAs at your disposal, and you
Yeah.
just have to figure out how to prompt it correctly so you get the output you want in a
Mhm.
format that you want. Right.
Oh, yeah.
So, talk to me a little bit about what you've found about prompt writing and what your
Oh,
secrets
yeah.
are.
It it will give you what you're asking regardless of what you want to actually be asking it.
Right.
Um, so I've definitely had to take a step back and be like, "Wait, how do I put this together in a succinct way?" For me, what helped was a mind shift of thinking about the AI like an intern.
Yep.
So if I have an intern and they have minimal work experience in this field, but I know they have a ton of potential and I'm invested in teaching them,
Yeah.
what would I say to them? I would sit down and I would explain like background for it. I would explain my thought process. I'd probably give an example or two. And this was a while ago that I made this shift. And so I started thinking of it as if it's an actual person intern that I'm talking to and saying, okay, we need to analyze data to find a trend. We're doing this with the goal of figuring out how we can increase sales, or we're doing this to try and figure out a better audience to target. And so really taking time to craft your prompt with the background information you need to be able to get that output the same way you would do if talking to a human.
Yep.
And what I would also say is thinking about AI in an agentic format, and so trying not to build one prompt that solves everything for you, of one prompt that produces an SEO optimized blog post based on your website, but thinking about it in a series of different prompts where you can have different little models or train different AI agents to build towards that. So having one prompt to go
Yeah.
through and say, here's my website, here's the website, here is the top 10 terms that we rank for, and we want to increase our rank in this specific term. Tell me like what other keywords should we be targeting for long tail keywords. That also is a horrible prompt.
Right.
Don't put that in. It would be a lot more to it. But taking that and making it one
Yeah.
output, and then taking that output and putting it in with another prompt. Okay, now that we have these 10 long tail keywords, prioritize which ones we should go against based on competitiveness and opportunity. Awesome. Based on that, write me a
Right.
content brief. And it takes time to structure
Yeah.
all that together. But when you take the time up front to put in the work, it's the same thing as an intern or any new employee. When you take the time to really train them and help them get good at the job, you're going to get a better output down the road, and they're going to continue doing great work without you having to spend as much time involved in helping them get to that output in the future.
Yeah, I love that. So you're writing these prompts for specific tactics, and then sequencing the prompts, and then you're building a workflow essentially for so that you're saving
Yeah,
yourself time
and
ultimately.
I find when I work with other people on this, they'll start off thinking, "Okay, I have 3 steps." And then we'll start going through, it's like, "Well, hold on. It's actually
Right.
like 52. And a lot of times just
You're
sitting there
right.
and forcing yourself to think through it has a ton of value in looking at what you're doing and why you're thinking
Yes.
about it. And are you really considering all the factors? Or is there an opportunity, like maybe you shouldn't be telling it what keyword to start with? Maybe you should ask it what keyword it recommends, and it's going
Right.
to pull in something you didn't even think about that's going to be a game changer for your business.
That is such a great point. Asking the LLM questions so that it can
Yeah,
backfill your gaps, right? So, and that's one that comes up frequently that a lot of people forget is you go ask, what else do you need, or what other information can I provide for you in order to make this a more filled out program, or whatever the
100%.
case is.
Yeah.
Yeah, I love it. That's beautiful. Um, One thing that I noticed on your LinkedIn, you were talking about cloning yourself, and just give me 2 minutes on what you're aiming for, because I have my actions
Yeah.
on that too.
So
So
I'm
go
trying
ahead.
different headlines to see what grabs people and gets them interested. And I actually
Yeah.
updated that at like
Yep.
11 p.m. one night. And I was like, what is, thinking about Liquid Death and how they do their marketing, like what's the
Yeah.
most absurd thing I could
Yeah.
probably say and get someone to actually respond to it? So great to hear it's
Okay.
working.
Great. So I'm in the
Yep.
absurd camp.
I do like the idea of building a digital twin of yourself in a smaller format, of having that
Yep.
person to be your thought partner that can take maybe some of your knowledge, then build on top of it or identify those gaps that you're missing. So I do think there is value in trying to build a almost version of yourself and your knowledge so you have it stored somewhere to be able to query and have those conversations with. Obviously, we can't fully
Yeah.
clone ourselves, but we can take a lot of what we know and start putting it into AI to build some of those almost little versions. Specifically with
Yeah.
that, I'm thinking about building an agentic AI team of 150 little AI agents that represent little things that you do in the way that you do it, that then can go help you
Yep.
scale even just your outputting capacity.
I love it. And well, thanks for answering that. And yes, I want to have you back on so that we can talk about agents and how to start
Yeah.
constructing those, because I think that's where the real
Oh, yeah.
leverage is going to come for all of us, right? So if you're interested in that, I'll reach out to you and we'll get
Yeah.
another time
Happy
just
to
to
chat.
talk about that.
Agentic AI.
Okay.
It's the future. It's the next big wave.
Yeah. Yep, I love it. I love the GEO, the generative
Oh, yeah.
engine optimization, and I love the agents, and I think that's kind of the next phase of for those of us who've been playing in this pool for a while, and that's
Yeah.
where the excitement is for me right now. Yeah. Well, Jess, how do people get in touch with you if they want to have a conversation and talk about how you might be able to help them, or
Yeah,
just ask some
LinkedIn is the best
questions?
spot. I also share quite a bit of content, and I'm going to be sharing more and more use cases about AI. My
Great,
challenge to myself in 2025 is to share an AI use case a day on LinkedIn. And when I say sharing a use case,
nice,
like a
I
video
love it.
walking through how to do something with AI that isn't content generation, because there's so much of that.
Right.
So yeah, LinkedIn's the best spot. Jess Gonzalez. There's a couple different. I would say there's a couple of me. It's a kind of a popular name, but you'll find me on there if you type marketing or AI and with Jess Gonzalez.
And the name of the agency, I think
Yep,
that's the other way
LF1
they can find you,
Marketing.
right, on LinkedIn?
Yeah, A1M.
Yeah, yeah, that's awesome. Well, I really appreciate your time. Thank you so much for talking about this, and looking forward to
Yeah,
our
thanks for
next
having me.
conversation, Jess. All right, have a great day.
Thanks for listening to Marketing in the Age of AI. Be sure to subscribe wherever you heard this podcast so you never miss a future episode. Your copy of Authentic Marketing in the Age of AI is available at Amazon.com or EmmanuelRose.com. You can also connect with Emmanuel on LinkedIn.